A cold wind blows across the frozen tundra of the southern continent. A storm is coming, a whiteout, the mother of all blizzards. Being caught in one is a death sentence for any but the most resilient creatures native to the land, frigid monstrosities who live and breathe the cold. Yet, on the eve of an age of ice, 6 figures cross the wastes. This is not their first storm weathered. A ship is moored, waiting for them. This is their last outing before they depart, looking for anything of worth, any stragglers they might bring to safety. For the right price, of course. It's while they pick through the ruins of an ancient structure that they see movement from the south, more than the swirling ice. A spot of darkness, a gray pelt, coming at them in a gallop. A small wolf, not the massive white-coated ones native to this region, and not running like a predator ready to pounce. No, wolves stalk from that distance. It's running from something. Someone. Eagle-Eye Edmund calls out, "To the west! A mage!" As a hovering figure clad in dark robes flies through the slurry of ice, a bolt of flame seeming to melt the very air as it scorches toward the wolf, narrowly missing. He curses in a language none here know. It's not hard to root for an underdog, of the most literal fashion. As the hound scurries behind the group, cowering, their minds are made up. One calls for him to halt. The mage flies on, raising a hand in menace, a single glinting bead raised to be thrown. Seeing the clear threat, one of the company lets loose a bolt from their crossbow, and it strikes him true. As he slams to the ground, a plume of smoke pops up, then a plume of fire, as the bead drops from his palm, combusting and consuming him in a roaring ball of flame. The wind chills less than the thought that passes through all their minds. That was about to be us. Thank the gods we're safe now. With a final unexpected encounter resolved and a friendly pooch to accompany them, the crew of the good ship Elmundar scour the ruins, finding an ancient stone talisman, one that looks like it would go for a respectable price to an archaeologist or collector back home. They make their way back to the ship, eager to leave this wasteland behind and enjoy the relative peace of shelter and warm food once again. Adding one more belly to their number wouldn't hurt, especially considering how many extra provisions they had brought, and really, who could resist such a cute, fuzzy face?
Fortunately, the crew of the IEV Elmundar is ready to go at about the same time that your boots hit the deck. You are the last group that is leaving. It is not going to be long before this place is completely overrun with ice, and you are happy to be getting out of here under the power of one of the few powered ships. It sports a gnomish engine, which supposedly allows it to transport all the way back to the main continent in only 37 days, rather than the normal 4-month journey that it would take other sailing vessels. So this has been most of your voyage so far. You are about 4 days in to your roughly 33-day journey, and the storm has not let up a single day. Has left you with little to do, except for count your lucky stars that the ship has a decent store of food. However, Squish, you have noticed something odd. Despite the fact that the creature that the crew brought on board has all of the hallmarks of a normal wild wolf, it acts much like a far more domesticated creature, and it has barely left the side of Steady Hands Sophia and Iron Heart Isabella since you came aboard. All of the
Am I able
lights
to tell
on board this vessel are actually run by some strange power called electricity. Something that the gnomes have been able to power a large amount of things with using the crystals which the engine runs on. There is a light coming out from underneath this door as well. You can also see up ahead of you, there are 2 people sitting in the galley, and 1 wolf as Eagle Eye rummages through the cabinets. The wolf pants happily as Steady Hands continually pets it on top of the head.
What time of day is it, roughly?
Now, you wish you knew. If you look outside, it is pitch dark. You're in the constant roiling darkness of being underneath massive clouds. You haven't seen the sun in 2 days.
I'm going to walk up to Steady Hands and go, "That's a nice animal you got there. Where'd you get it?"
Oh, I thought, well, he's not mine. We found him when we were, out exploring. When we found the, Ironheart is going to look over and kind of, like, make a cutting motion with her hand. When we were looking around in the ruins.
Insight to try and catch that attempt to withhold information.
Sure. Unfortunately, that one slides by you. And she's definitely hiding something, but you're not sure exactly what.
I'm going to assume that I'm more enamored with the pretty puppies that I don't really catch it.
Oh, yeah, most likely.
You think you found it?
Oh, well,
like,
more like he found us.
Huh, just wandering around, eh? Poor guy. I guess someone's lost his now.
I'm pulling up a chair and sitting down.
All right. Harrow.
The group that showed up late with that wolf are kind of catching my eye. I want to see if there's any way I can notice if there's anything weird or strange about any of them without them really catching on. Sort of a, kind of investigatory here.
You're fairly sure that Squish has discovered that the wolf is quite fluffy and worth petting. What does draw your eye, though, is in the background, Eagle Eye appears to be pulling out some kind of tripe from beneath the cooking station, and when no one is looking, is shoving the occasional handful in his mouth while pretending to still be searching for something to eat.
Interesting. Well, I kind of ignore that, but I'll keep my eyes on them and sort of just lean back against the wall here with my arms crossed, just keeping a very watchful eye on this group. Something doesn't seem right to me about them.
Yisul and Furlow. Is there anything the 2 of you want to do? You're still back in the room here?
Yisul has just kind of stumbled out of bed. He's still not used to this whole being on a boat thing and the electric lights and their buzzing, preferring the ground under his feet. But he sees Harrow going up towards the hall and just kind of follows behind, curious.
Furlow has a little bit of a kleptomania problem.
No way! I'm shocked.
Yes.
What madness is this?
Greasy hair as fleas kind of evade his fingertips, and he starts running all over the place, searching for everything and anything he can stuff down his pants.
All right, well, you find a handful of embers from that brazier in the corner.
I don't know if he's going to do that, but sport, spoon,
Hey, you can't blame a DM for trying, right?
candlesticks, like anything that he could possibly sell for even a copper, he's putting down his pants.
All right, well, you've got a couple of tools over here. You got a shaving straight razor. You probably want to make sure that doesn't come out.
Yep, that's going down the pants.
Shaving kits.
Yep, take that too.
Unfortunately, the only thing that you find in either of these chests is a whole lot of nothing, because they were put here for you to be able to put your stuff in. You do
Alright, so
find
you
5 silver pieces tucked away in the corner here by the chest, though.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Those are pants bound. After a few moments, Edmund is going to slide over into the chair here. He's going to lean over and start conversing generally with Ironheart. Asking her if she thinks this voyage is going to make him any coin. And Ironheart will, of course, give him no words in return, because she's trying to keep things quiet, but will just give him a sly smile and a slow nod. Not particularly interested in that conversation. Steady Hands is going to rise up. Wolf is immediately going to hop up as well, and will follow her as she heads downstairs to the lower level.
Why is it sailors are always after treasure? There's so many things in the world to get that are not necessarily worth money.
Eagle Eye will just look over at Sarah and say, yes, but most of those things you can buy.
Sarah's gonna walk over and kind of look at the cabinets that Eagle Eye was looking through, and is it all disheveled or is it still organized?
It looks fairly disheveled. He didn't take a particular amount of care towards rummaging through it. If there is a cook here, they're gonna be pissed when they find this mess.
A dirty place leaves a lot more work for there to be done in the future. And I'll just return to my chair, kind of glaring at Eagle Eye.
You didn't leave it messy, did you? And Eagle Eye will kind of scratch the back of his head. You know Salty Sam's gonna have a hell of a time. The door will swing open, and a olive-skinned, raven-haired woman will come out of the door and head into the room. Did I hear someone mention my name? Eagle Eye is going to hurriedly continue trying to stuff things back into their proper place before Sam catches him.
Merely just trying to protect your kitchen from, hands.
I don't think we've had the chance to meet. She will stick out a gloved hand that is missing its ring finger. Salty.
Sarah will reach out and shake Salty's hand. I am Sarah. I am a priestess of Our Lady in Silver.
Ah. Well, that would explain why you didn't make the obvious joke of trying to introduce yourself as sweet. Thanks for that. She'll take a seat.
I bet you get that joke a lot. That's kind of funny now that you say it.
Oh, yes. All the time. Everyone thinks they're so clever. It takes a few minutes, but you do hear a thump from downstairs. And Steady Hands comes back up, trying to dodge her feet around the wolf that is constantly getting in the way as she carries a crate.
Do you need a hand with that?
I think she gets tangled up as the wolf moves around in front of her excitedly, and she trips, and the crate goes flying into the air.
The crate sails forward, threatening to shatter on the deck. The clinking of bottles signal to them all that this is precious cargo. Booze. Sarah instinctively rises from her chair, poised to lunge for it, but before she can blink, she sees green. Squish is across the floor in a flash. The crate impacts her gelatinous form with a gloop, and the crew watches as it slowly, gently settles onto the floor before the gelatinous adventurer withdraws, leaving the crate and its contents none the worse for wear, though perhaps a little moist.
Oh, I am dreadfully sorry about that. Ironheart will just laugh. Good thing they call you Steady Hands and not Steady Feet.
I think your friend there did not want you to drink.
Either that or he has a taste for the good stuff. Thank you, Squish, is it? Oh, well, I was going to offer a drink to all of you. I suppose now I'll have to also thank you for saving the drinks for all of us. And she will pop open the crate and pull out some bottles of port.
I didn't even know the ship was in port yet.
Oh, trust me. The captain makes sure that we're never out of port.
With the refreshments saved and many a night yet to wait out, the crew of the Elmundar and their passengers whittle away the hours, chatting about past battles, telling jokes and eerie stories by sparklight. It's a good night to be snowed in with cheerful company, warm cots, and cold booze. The crackle of thunder and the rumble of the engine would make a good lullaby tonight.
Harrow, you've felt the engine pretty much since you got on board. As you're leaning against the wall here, you hear a kind of rumble in the engine for a second. The vibration in the ship shifts, but then it goes back to normal.
Huh. I think we're slowing down, guys.
I hope not.
Something weird's going on with the ship's, whatever's making this thing move.
I'll go check. Steady Hands will head downstairs, and as the wolf goes to follow her, she'll say, no, stay. And then she will disappear downstairs. The wolf flops down on its haunches and kind of just stares down the stairs.
Squish walks over to the wolf and makes like a looks like a Jello mold imitation of it and plops down next to it.
That's an adorable image.
It is.
Oi, that's a good input. That's imitate. That's a good copy.
The wolf will kind of tilt its head slowly to the side. Salty looks around at the room full of adventurers. None of you are any good with machinations, are you? No artificers?
Not that I know of.
I know I'm supposed to just trust Cannonball with that thing, but, I mean, he... Oh, well.
You think something is wrong? Should we check on him?
He says that he knows all about the gnomish machines. He grew up with a friend of his. Helped us acquire the parts for it. when it broke down, but sometimes I think he believes that he knows more than he knows. You know how men like that can be.
The goo dog nods and goes, if you like, I can go check on him. I mean, I'd be able to help with the engine, but I can make sure he's okay.
I'm sure if anything was going really badly, that, well, you'd probably know. And she gives kind of a slightly nervous chuckle.
With little else to do but wait, worry, and think about many moons of rationed provisions, the conversation lulls. Salty crouches by the kitchen, grumbling to herself as she puts to rights the mess left behind by Eagle Eye, and Squish lets her curiosity lead her downstairs to visit this overconfident engineer. It doesn't take long for Sarah and Harrow to follow at her heels. Their footsteps echo on the wooden stairs as they descend, when something strange happens. Impossibly, as their feet reach the lower floor, their souls meet not wood, but grass. Fresh air, devoid of salt, blows on their faces. Birds' song titters in the treetops around them. They find themselves in a forest, a glade. The ship nowhere to be seen.
Looks around in utter confusion.
I didn't know boats moved by way of tree.
I mean, they're made of wood, but
Yeah, normally they don't. That's a new one for all of us.
I'm gonna put my hand in this bush.
Okay. You brush your fingers through the branches and come back with a small bit of red liquid streaked across your gauntlet. You squished a raspberry.
Interesting.
I'm gonna look behind us. Is the way we came back look the same, or just like gone?
It does not. It looks like there's a little path that leads up back where the wall used to be.
Instantly on edge from the sudden change of scenery, the trio draw their weapons, moving carefully and examining their surroundings with caution.
It looks extremely real. And you just watched as Sarah moved her hand through the bush, and you didn't see it like waver as it brushed through it. It actually looked like she ran her fingers across the branches. But as you look down, you notice that the tip of one of your boots is stuck inside the rock that you're next to. A clear sign that this is something illusionary.
Oh god, we're in a Bethesda game.
Damn it, Todd Howard, you did it again.
I'm going to move around the bush that's in front of me and try to explore a little bit.
A pair of small birds will flit out of this bush here and fly up into the branches of this tree, disappearing.
Are you still cold?
You feel warm until you really think about it, and then you feel kind of chilly, but you're sure you should be warm. You're on a sun-dappled trail in a sunny day. It's very conflicting and confusing. Your body's confused as to whether you're cold or nice and warm.
Eyes go like the size of dinner plates. Nope, we are getting the others. Nope, we're going back. And she is gonna like walk and get others because this is some weird fucking shit.
All right, you walk forward another 5 feet and you trip on the stairs and splat against them and have to kind of climb up and feel your way through the stairs as you climb up into the air.
Achievement locked.
Continue to climb, and as soon as I'm over the threshold, I'll go, guys, you really should come see this.
So, what I gotta see?
We'll head down the stairs and into a forest.
Well, this is a little weird, but it's a damn sight nicer. At least I know dirt. At least it looks like it.
You're floating in the air.
Yeah, but look at all of the dirt down there.
As you are investigating and continuing to move forward, you will find that quite suddenly, you're back in the storeroom.
No more forest, huh? I don't see Cannonball either.
No, but there are several doors down here. There's a pair of doors on the northern side, and a single door on the southern side. To the south, you can hear the sound of what appears to be mechanical parts moving and the occasional hiss of smoke or steam.
Well, that's probably where they are. Knock on the door.
Steady hands will open up the door, and you will see that she is in here next to the crystal with Cannonball Charlie.
I'll say, hi, sorry to bother you. We heard some noises, and then we came down and there was a giant forest.
Yeah, what was in those drinks?
Oh, well, with the one that most of us had, probably just the wine and the rum. Oh, but we did have a bit of the captain's special. I don't know what's in hers.
Because we've seen some things down here, things that should not be here.
Not like creatures, right? Just like you said, a forest.
Bird,
Like
It's an
animal.
animal or
bird,
two.
it wasn't like, okay, somebody brought a bunch of trees on the ship. It's like, no, we walked down here and we were no longer on the ship. We were in a forest. Are there any illusionists on board having a laugh?
Not that I know of. Yeah, Wilfred isn't with the crew anymore, so shouldn't have anybody throwing around things like that. He claimed he was a master summoner, but I swear that he was just cheap parlor tricks.
Who else is on the ship? We passed a room on the way to the galley that was occupied. Who's in there?
That would have been Salty Sam's room. Oh, unless you mean the one on the other side.
Yeah.
That's Stormbringer.
Who now?
Stormbringer. He's Dark Elf.
I haven't seen him yet. That must be who it is.
Yeah, he's usually up on deck during the storms. He likes to stand out in them.
Is there any other adventuring parties here? Maybe one with an illusionist or a maid?
We wouldn't have room for another one unless we stocked them up in the storeroom. And you don't exactly stack like cordwood.
You guys didn't have any pick up any weird trinkets or stuff on the island, did you? Maybe something that's magical that you didn't know was? Could be something as simple as a simple bauble, or, who knows what.
Steady Hands and Cannonball will kind of share a glance. Harrow and Squish. Before Steady Hands and Cannonball give you their simultaneous answer of nope, no, nothing. They share a conspiratorial look that tells you there is definitely something, and you're not sure if the privateers that you've hired to take you back will allow you to press them for more information about it. They seem pretty tight-lipped.
I share a conspiratorial glance at Squish and give them a slight nudge. I think we'll maybe see about poking around sometime once the crew has gone to bed.
Squish, however, before turning it over, well, if you think of something that maybe your mind has slipped, keep this in mind. Me and my party are not here to take whatever you may have found. We don't operate like that. However, if it's a potential danger to us in the ship, knowing about it would be helpful. So maybe rack your meat brains and see if you can think of something.
Sounds like a plan. I'll ask around and see if anyone else picked up some trinkets while we were there. Cannonball is going to rotate a couple of the wheels that are next to him, causing a soft hiss to release out of two of the spinning cylinders at the back of the vessel. And then Steady Hands will step up and, with a gentle smile, will close the door.
As Steady Hands gingerly closes the door, killing any further chance of inquiry, the four adventurers ascend the stairs once again, passing the gentle padding of the wolf on their way to their room once more, where Furlow has been alone this entire time, making superb use of the hammocks afforded to the lot of them. Closing the door behind them, the group shares knowing looks as they begin to discuss the goings-on below decks.
Which is going to make sure that once everyone's accounted for, that the door is shut. Look over to Harrow and go, so we agree that they're fucking lying, right?
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Illusory forest, and these guys are definitely hiding something. Whatever's going on at the bottom of that ship is not what they're telling us.
They obviously found something. So the question is, what did they find, and how do we find it?
Anyone able to detect magic?
I have detect magic. I don't know that they'll let us search around in that mechanical room.
Maybe we can sneak down there when the crew has hopefully gone to sleep, or at least most of them have, and see if we can detect anything. I mean, with an illusion like that, something's going on that's definitely magical and not normal.
With that, it was decided. Secrets were being kept, so the four of them would perform their own investigation. Furlow, too, after he woke. Probably. He really needed his beauty sleep, as anyone can clearly see. So the night progressed through drinks, rolling waves, and finally to dinner. This was not nearly as much of a collective affair. Salty doled out the rations to all, each wearily bringing the soup and hardtack back to their chambers to sup through the evening with a book or whatever else they chose to use to occupy their time. It was as Captain Blacklace took her share, Sea Star Serena on her arm, that Squish stepped in front of them sheepishly. Well, as sheepishly as a pile of goo can be, anyway.
Excuse me, Captain, quick question. When you went on the island where you got us, did you guys find anything?
Oh, a lot of people trying to flee and get away from the incoming winter storm?
Did you guys find anything magical?
Magical, and I don't think so. If we did, I would hope that the crew would have let me know about it.
I only ask because earlier we ran into a very strong illusion on the engine deck. We're thinking maybe you picked up something that might be more than it seems.
Or we could have a stowaway on board.
I'd not consider that. Regardless, this was rather powerful illusion magic.
Alright, well, I will go ahead and ask around to the other members of the crew, see if they found anything of note. I wouldn't think that anyone would be foolish enough to try and stow away on board and then give themselves away with some kind of illusion, but they did mention, actually, that they ran into one of the locals, one of those Frostborn lizard men. They had a rather eventful encounter with him. Shots were exchanged, and he blew himself up. Perhaps one of his fellows has attempted to sneak on board the ship to issue some kind of vengeance. I'll have my people stay on high alert, and if you will keep your eyes open as well, then hopefully we will all make it to the end of this journey safely. If they did sneak on board the vessel, I fear that they will be grossly outnumbered and shocked at how far away from home they are, should they decide to damage it in any way. Even they should not be so foolish. I don't want this to get cold, and you shouldn't either. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, and I will speak to my crew and speak to you all on the morrow.
Sounds good. Much appreciated, Captain.
With still no further leads and finding no crew carry the same urgent concern for their well-being, the party returns to their quarters to wait out daylight, or what precious little filters through the cloudy skies above. It's some hours later, when the ship seems to have fallen silent, most tucked in their cots, that Furlow is now up and about. He doesn't look any more beautiful. He does, however, look invigorated. The one eye that still peeks from beneath his wrinkled brow glints with something. Ooh.
I look at Furlow and go, been rather quiet, Vital. This.
Oh, I've been having conversations with my pet fleas.
What did they say?
Okay, you're crazy, not sus. Got it.
I want to know what they said.
Well, we were having a conversation on whose pocket we were gonna pick first. I was thinking that squishy one over there looked kind of ripe.
I have no words.
All right.
As you move up past the two rooms, you will see that the resident Dark Elf is actually present. He is leaning up against the wall in a relatively dim corner of the galley.
I'll wave my hand at him.
He doesn't respond, doesn't turn his head to look at you, or even lift his cloak as you move into the room. The closer you get, the more you realize that he is actually in the midst of reverie, sleeping, leaning against the wall, in the darkness like an edgy boy.
Alrighty then. Is this a elf thing or a this dude thing? I don't really know much about elves.
Shh, he's trying to sleep.
Let's make all quiet like that.
Leave it
Furlow
in
starts
peace.
rubbing his hands together because he's already looking at the mark with anticipation.
You want to pick his pocket?
Absolutely.
All right.
You're playing a literal murder hobo, aren't you?
I mean, he has a home for right now, so he can't be a hobo.
I was gonna say more like a larceny hobo.
I'm going to glance around with my magic-looking eyes to see if I see any magic.
The only magic that you see is a small glow coming from over in the kitchen.
I'll kind of casually head in that direction towards the kitchen.
Furlow, you will find that he doesn't carry any coins.
Does he carry anything else?
He does. He carries 4 gemstones in his pocket.
I'll take him.
All right.
I just look at the freaking murder hobo and go, if you get caught, none of us are going to come to your aid.
I want to investigate whatever this is, see if there's anything to steal.
There's a whole bunch of loose objects.
All right, let's fill my pants up. Let's go.
Okay.
As Furlow generously liberates the ship of anything not nailed down, to his great delight, the other 4 share a knowing glance. If he were caught, there'd be hell to pay. On the bright side, he seemed more likely to get caught stealing than they were to get caught snooping. It wasn't long before they left him to his devices, jingling above and softly cackling, as they descended to the lowest level of the ship. Scanning shelves, softly opening crates, seeking out anything arcane they could find, the storeroom was thoroughly searched. There were gemstones, liquor, fabrics, potions, but none of these were of any suspect. They placed them all back where they came from, seeking out only an anomaly. An anomaly such as a small stone sculpture glowing with an aura of conjuration magics.
There appears to be an inscription on the base of it. The Activation Psalm.
Interesting.
What's he got there?
Can I read the inscription?
What languages do you know?
Common, Celestial, and Primordial.
Oh, yes you can. It is in Terran. It is, come ye forth, brothers of rock. And then 3 times it cycles around the back and just says, rock and stone to the bone.
Do I think that this might conjure some kind of stone creature, maybe?
Logic would follow.
I'm going to return the stone to where I found it. It obviously didn't create the forest.
All right.
The group soon finds there are many more magic items than they were prepared for. A silver amulet that held abjuration, copper masks which looked magical but carried no glow at all, gloves charged with transmutation magics, but nothing of illusion. They've nearly turned the entire storeroom upside down when the ship groans beneath them, just slightly. Squish merely quirks her, Squish. Yasul, however, frowns, his gut filling in what everyone else had missed. They've turned to the east, and that they are slowly but surely gaining speed. A hiss comes from the door to the south, from the engine room. He puts a finger to his lips and approaches the door silently. You could hear a pin drop, despite the noise of the storm, as he creaks the door open to see a figure at the controls. Squish stretches out a spindly tendril to poke an eye over his shoulder.
Steady Hands is using her steady hands, shifting a set of levers. You'll watch as she pushes one of them to almost the maximum, causing a slowly rising whistle to come out of the console, at which point a hiss issues from it and blasts hot steam that punches through her palm and causes her to yank back her hand with a sizzle. And you will watch the hole in the center of her palm close back up, just like when Squish gets something lopped into her.
Squish is going to motion to shut the door and everyone to, try and back away.
They'd all had their suspicions, of course, but the gravity of knowing for absolute certain that something was very wrong, it was a new weight, a new kind of chill. They moved with purpose up the decks, headed to the captain's chambers as fast as possible. They couldn't strike without permission, but would they have enough time? They crossed the open deck under pouring rain, seeing Cannonball Charlie by the aft mast, rushing to meet him and share what they'd seen. The wolf cowers by the wall, taking shelter from the rain.
As we get closer, I just want to be like, is the ship supposed to be going east and still turning right a little?
I'm not the navigator or the captain. I have no idea. Serena and Captain Blacklace are in the room. And he'll jerk his thumb back towards the door.
I'll be like, well, your friend is down there playing around with levers and switches in the engine room, and we're pretty sure the ship is turning.
Friend, what? Who?
Oh, that what you call steady hands girl.
Steady Hands? She doesn't know anything about the... Let me get the captain. And he will go over and bang on the door several times, and the door will swing open. Captain Blacklace and Sea Star step out, shielding themselves from the driving rain. Tell her what you told me, and he'll motion the group over.
When we woke up, we felt the ship would turn. It seems to be going east. I didn't know if it was supposed to. And that steady hands lay in the engine room.
Captain Blacklace is just going to kind of shake her head as she steps out into the rain. Steady Hands shouldn't be playing with the console at all unless you're down there, Cannonball. I know, that's what I said. I can head down. Do that. He'll start heading that way.
Real quick, before you go,
Huh?
there was something else that you might want to know. Unless you already know.
Captain, Sea Star is going to try and get everyone's attention. There's, you said east. Like, east? How hard? How many degrees?
Well, I don't know about degrees or any of that, but it was a pretty hard bake to the east. Also, can steady hands grow back hands?
What? No. Captain, the only thing that's to the east are the Fragment Islands.
Well, I don't know about that, but steady hands grew back a hand.
Cannonball is going to reach out and grasp the railing. and peer out. He turns back to yell, but is nowhere near in time. Not that there is anything that any of you could have done to stop what's coming. There is a crash, a cracking sound that hits so deeply that you feel almost as if your entire core has been rocked by the impact. Fortunately, you're on the deck when it happens. Some were less fortunate, as the ship's turn brings it directly into a massive pillar of ice in the sea. And everything goes black.
The party watches in horror as the broken, mangled bodies of the crew burble and twist, seeming to boil and freeze all at once, limbs convulsing and losing shape as they become shapeless blobs of flesh and bone. Each of the amorphous monstrosities move towards its nearest prey, burbling hungrily. The toothy maw of the wolf disjoints, patches of fur dissolving into a bloody, viscous brine as it begins to feed on Captain Blacklace's broken body. Harrow is the first to meet the living meat as she struggles to rise to her feet, knees quaking, head spinning. The ooze slides over the arm she uses to brace herself, and she cries out in pain as it begins to eat away at her skin, adding to its own mass. Sarah watches, petrified, as Sea Star's hand, outstretched, twitches. Her arm sticking from a globe of blood and bone. The arm is now all that remains. Even the gods cannot heal her now. Furlow braces himself against the splintered mass of the vessel, coughing up a lung, shivering from the icy water still dripping from his rags. Yasul groans, blood frozen to the side of his head, matting his fur. Through his bleary vision he sees Squish, or what's left of the plasmoid. She's swarmed by 3 of the fleshy slimes, almost drowning in their excessive mass. The typically jovial barbarian clenches his jaw. There's a certain essence to the bitter winter. When every sense is in pain and being numbed at once, it grants a cold kind of clarity. This is life or death. Perhaps only death. But he was not one to cower in the face of it. Death was his tool, and he would wield it until it took him in return.
You are surrounded by a blizzard, and the things that you are able to make out in the cold terrain that is around you are not particularly promising. The Elmundar has been completely cracked in half. Bits of it are scattered about in the snow. Well, the snow is falling fast enough now that at least some of the pieces are being covered. You're not sure how long you've been out, but it's probably part of your instincts that has allowed you to wake up at this time. Because as you awaken, you find other things in the snow. Bits of bone surrounded by slime. It looks just enough like Squish for you to make a comparison, but Squish has no bony interior. These things instead look far less cuddly and far more malevolent. They plop up out of the snow, and you can see the twisting surface of the ooze trying to reshape itself into members of the crew. But the cold is not doing it any favors, causing the ooze-like skin to crackle and break. Sea Star Serena's body lays nearby as Steady Hands rise up partially out of the snow, her skin breaking away into this cold ooze surface. Ironheart, likewise, melds out of the water, and Eagle Eye leaves his face completely behind and instead embraces his ooze-like form. They need a little bit of warmth, and the nearby warmth is you. Everyone roll initiative.
It's the simian's primal war cry that shocks everyone into action once again. Harrow staggers back, pulling her arm free from the nauseating suction. Furlow sucks in a sharp, icy breath, pulls 2 knives from some hidden compartment in his apparently spacious trousers, and rushes at the mound of flesh, snarling. Yasul roars, tossing his axe into the snow, and begins clawing at the pile, trying to dig through to his ally. It's frantic, feverish, but soon his fingertips plunge into a different texture. In a flash, it sticks to his palm, pulling itself up his arm, around his shoulders, and soon enough, Squish is standing atop the barbarian, wasting no time before sending several blasts of force from her pseudopods, punching clean holes in the writhing gore. Seeing the opening, Furlow cuts the connected edges of one, bisecting it entirely. Sarah curses, uttering a prayer before stepping off the ice, but not into the water, into the sky. Angelic wings sprout from her back as she crosses the icy water rapidly, uttering words to her goddess on high and casting healing word on Squish, watching her gelatinous ally glow and grow slightly, regaining mass that was lost in the battle. Harrow brings her warhammer down on the ooze before her, flattening it into the snow and cracking at the ice beneath her feet. Only her sharp reflexes allow her to step back to solid ground rather than topple into the frigid ocean behind. Yisul and Furlow go to work, letting Squish punch through the center of each blob, then using their blades to sever the connecting perimeter, leaving them fragmented and motionless. But to their horror, they merely shudder as they slip back into a singular hole. All three reform as if nothing had harmed them to begin with. The one Harrow quashed rose from its crater unaffected. Snarls from the shipwreck heralded the rest of the crew on their way, having long since become food for the endless hunger in liquid form. Could they even be killed? It was a sobering concern, and perhaps their last. Nonetheless, there was nothing else to do but fight. Fight until their limbs gave in. Fight until the war of attrition was lost or a miracle occurred. Sarah's bolts of holy light punched through them, the same as Squish's psionic blows. They singed the flesh, but it reformed all the same. Slice, pierce, crush, or burn, nothing seemed to slow their tireless onslaught. That is, until Yisul's wild strike seemed to catch on something in the air, just for a moment before carrying on towards his target. The ooze crumpled, suddenly dissolving into black ash before his blade even landed. Sudden motion caught Sarah's eyes as an abyssal groan roared from beneath the iceberg, and a red ribbon rippled in the wind before retracting into the cracks in the ice. Narrowing her eyes, she sees them. She sees all of them. Every misshapen lump of flesh and bone has a thin, impossibly so, thread of fiber trailing off into the air, into the ice, connecting them to something. What it was, she hoped they wouldn't have to find out. She calls out with all her might,
"The tethers! Cut the tethers!"
And instantly Yisul knew what she meant. His eyes were far from perfect, but the blade of his axe was broad. A few swipes through the air above one, and it too crumbled into ash. Furlow snatched the red thread from the open air, a sort of expert in estimating where things were beyond his natural perceptions, and quickly severed the second ooze's tendril as well. Harrow had made a living out of having a keen eye and quick reflexes. She saw them once she was looking for them. Throwing her warhammer at the one approaching, she drew a scimitar from her back hastily, swinging it through the air in an arc, severing the tethers, and she didn't stop there. She followed them as they flew back, another unearthly groan shaking the ground. She ran, she leapt, hitting the deck sprinting, pushing against gravity. The rest of the crew, or their desecrated remains, lie within. More foes, more tethers. Her blade was a blur, and by the time she skidded to a halt on the ice, she had cut the last remaining ties. The world was momentarily silent, and then it shook again, as the ice cracked and red tendrils, thicker, stronger, rose from beneath the ice, sinking the back half of the ship and pulling itself upward. It was massive, nauseating, a churning mass of flesh and bone that towers over them, more than 10 feet in the air. Blades dissolved in it. It was impossible. Spells fizzled against it. It was unstoppable. It was death. And it had come. When a person believes they are about to die, the limitless possibilities of life narrow down to merely 3. Freeze, flee, or fight. A great many things make adventurers become adventurers rather than city guards, craftsmen, criminals. For some, glory and fame is their intoxicant. For others, curiosity or desire to see or understand the greater world, and many simply crave the power that comes from felling great foes and amassing hordes of their own. But the thing nearly all have in common? When the chips are down, adventurers fight. And when they fight for their lives, they don't hold back. Sarah's wings pull upward as she releases a cry so fierce it goes hoarse, gesturing before her as she chants the language of her goddess, and the moon cuts through the mist and snow, backlighting her chosen warrior. As a beam of pure brightness comes forth, it's impossible to say whether it's from Sarah or the moon itself. Perhaps she is channeling both. It is enormous, like a torrential waterfall, blasting forth at impossible speed, but the looming death is larger still. With a crack of lunar thunder, a hole is torn in the center of the meat and bone, but as great as that wound is, it only takes a moment for that hole to begin to close. Yasul swings with animalistic ferocity, cleaving part of one edge of the blob, but it's not enough. The opening is waning. The mist obscures the moon once again. Their most powerful weapon had rent the creature, but swiftly the damage was being brushed off as little more than a stiff breeze. Their work diminished in moments. Furlow falls to his knees. An old-timer like him, for all his childish mirth, is wise enough to know when his time has come. Squish, however, is much more naive, much more idealistic. She sees something subtle, something important, something that she doesn't have that this great mountain of death does. Not the blood, not the bones, not even the shifting mass that stretches into 1,000 screaming faces like roiling waves of an ocean of memory and death. No, it's much simpler, much smaller. Despite not moving over ground, the monster dodged. A discolored globe shifted within the ooze the moment the moonbeam struck. It had a heart. It could be killed. But their weapons would never reach. Their spells would never be fast enough. She'd played keep-away with her trinkets inside her mask before, so she knew there was only one way. The luminous beacons that passed for eyes on Squish's surface narrowed, and just before the wound slurped closed entirely, Yasul felt a weight on his back. Squish flowed as fast as she was able, up his shoulders, leaping into the air, diving into the monster with not a fraction of a second to spare. The party could only watch in horror, panting as the beast pulsed and Squish slowly but surely melted away. She curled around the dark, throbbing heart of the beast, even as she withered, dissolving into the strange liquid. Harrow cursed, carving into it, but it was no use. She was in too deep. Seconds passed. The core pulsed. They carved. She waned. Then it pulsed. Faster. Faster still. The roiling mass began to thrash. It was suffocating. This was working. But gods be damned, she wouldn't last. With one last roar, Yasul threw his useless axe aside once more, beginning to claw at the wall of flesh with an uncontainable wrath, tearing out chunks and tossing them aside even as the skin on his fingertips burned off in the acid. Squish was barely half the size she used to be now, but she was still there. He kept pushing, further. She was barely holding on. With a final roar of effort, he thrust his arm to the very center of the monstrous thing, closing his eyes and bellowing against the searing sensation that slipped to cold nothing, gritting his teeth as the muscles and nerves were eaten away. Feeling around before he could feel no more, his palm curled around the heart with the last of his strength. Sarah covered her mouth in horror. Yasul's right arm was little more than bone now. Harrow grasped onto his free hand as Squish formed around the skeletal palm, and all at once they reared back, pulling the barbarian free, pulling the heart from the ooze, pulling Squish from her demise. A thunderous groan shook all of them, and the iceberg itself, the tower of flesh, thrashed, coming apart at the seams. It roiled, seized, and collided with the rear half of the Elmundar, slamming the ship into the ocean, sinking it for good. The fight was over. They had won. Sarah extends both hands, channeling the mercy of her goddess once again as a wave of holy light emits from her. It washes over the full party, staunching their wounds and bringing them some much-needed energy. The stump of Yasul's arm heals over, but it does not regrow, the bones falling to the ground where Squish lies, little more than a puddle. The four of them watch with bated breath as the light washes over the green plasmoid, but she indeed begins to burble. As the bubbles rise and pop, it's as if they are growing in mass, adding more fluid back to her form. The darkened, rotted core of their tormentor shrivels and pales as she rises, a familiar face forming, arms extending out, eyes blinking, looking around to each of her comrades in arms. Relief passes through each of them, at the very least glad to have not lost her in the fray, before their relief is stopped in its tracks. With a look of confusion, she simply says,
Where are we? Who are you?
And that is where we will leave our band of intrepid adventurers. Stranded, out in the cold, and with a storm preparing to white out that side of the world, but, for the moment, all very much alive. Far better off than all others that thing came across. Perhaps with their abilities they may even live to tell the tale of their strange and harrowing journey, as they are surely convinced that they have put down the creature forever. The horror that they defeated was an elder Oblex, an extraordinarily intelligent ooze who eats memories and imitates people perfectly. Had it gotten to the main continent, well, who knows how many cities it could have devoured before it was stopped. If it was stopped. But perhaps, if their resources cannot sustain them and their skills cannot see them out, then this icy landscape in the midst of the ocean will be their tomb. No one will know what they have done. No tales will be spun or people inspired if they simply disappear, but that need not be a dark mark in their ledger. The realms know what they have done. The gods know. You know. Some heroes never get songs. But then again, some heroes don't need them.